Hello, everybody. Welcome back to She Thrives, our Body Mind series, where we are helping to empower women with knowledge about food and behavior and habits, fitness and mindset, all of the things that we need to get a handle on to take our power back, to take our health back. And we're wanting to do this in a way that feels simple and natural. And the goal is that we can just get all of this behind us so we can get on with living our greatest and best life. And so today I am so excited to have Dr. Mimi Guarneri with us. And Dr. Guarneri, am I pronouncing that right? Dr. Guarneri, right?
Guarneri, right.
Guarneri, yes, is a world-renowned cardiologist who co-founded the Guarneri Integrative Health Institute in La Jolla. She currently serves on the founding board of the American Board of Physicians, Specialties in Integrative Medicine. She's board-certified cardiologist and an integrative natural medicine physician. And I wanted Dr. Guarneri on our series this year because she brings this really unique and interesting approach to health and well-being that's so often overlooked from the standpoint of Western medicine. So she's bringing a lot to the table for health and wellness, and I'm so excited that she's here. Thanks for joining us this year, Dr. Guarneri.
Oh, it's great. Thank you.
I wonder if we can just go back a little ways, and maybe you can tell us your story and how this all got going for you.
Well, it's a little bit of a story. I'll make it brief. I was trained in interventional cardiology. And for those not familiar with that term, that's one who places stents and does angioplasty to open blocked arteries, balloon angioplasty and stenting. And in the 90s, I was doing literally over 700 stents a year. And I then started to do some research with Dean Ornish, which may be a name familiar to many of your viewers. And we started to study yoga, meditation, vegetarian diet, group support, exercise in people with really bad cardiovascular disease. And it was a turning point for me because I watched some of the sickest cardiovascular patients, heart patients, transform their health through lifestyle change. And I realized the limitations of Western medicine. So it totally changed my perspective, where I started to recognize that the kind of medicine I learned in medical school is great for acute care. So if someone has a heart attack or a stroke, you want to be in a major medical center. But to prevent disease and to create health, if someone has a health challenge, Western medicine clinicians are not skilled in that. And that sent me on a 25+ year journey of transforming the way I practice clinical cardiology, but also I am devoted through the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine to training clinicians to think differently. So to train clinicians in mind-body medicine, nutraceuticals, nutrition, all the global healing approaches, acupuncture, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, all the things that we didn't learn in medical school.
Wow. How did this transform your own life personally?
That's an interesting story too. When I first started to do the research, you have to remember it was 1996. I was doing nothing but stenting and running around the hospital all day. And then I start to do this lifestyle change research study. And the patients were very, very sick. The patients that went into the study were not candidates for bypass or angioplasty. They were too complex at the time. And I was monitoring the patients as they would be in their yoga class and in their exercise class. So I started to do yoga. I started to exercise routinely with the patients, and I became, in 1 week, I went from a meat eater to a vegetarian. And that was just the start of my journey of transformation. I then got trained in healing touch, and I started to see the wisdom of so many different global healing traditions that I said, even though the research is over, we need to keep going with this. And With that, we founded, Rowney King and I founded the Scripps Center for Integrative Medicine, one of the first integrative medicine centers in a major healthcare institution. In the 1990s, we founded that, and then went on to create a series of other centers and work with the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine. So it's been a journey, and it's been a great one from my perspective. You know, now I'm a vegetarian. I do transcendental meditation twice a day. I have a deep spiritual background for myself, practice, and I feel if, as a young doctor, I had learned these things early on, life would have been a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. So what I'd love to ask you about is, I was actually watching a YouTube video that you were on, and you know, this is about the human condition, really. It's about the literal meaning of a broken heart, the power of physical touch and therapeutic touch, and how this all plays out with our heart health and our emotional health, and how that's all intertwined. And I'm really interested in it because, well, I was a massage therapist for 16 years, and I know the power of therapeutic touch. But I'd love to hear, or maybe you could share with our audience your experience of that, and maybe that whole literal idea of a broken heart and how that translates to our actual heart health.
Well, we know, hands down, evidence-based, that there's something called broken heart syndrome. It's now recognized in the medical literature. Someone receives bad news or traumatic news, that the heart muscle responds sometimes with a pouring out of stress hormones that can actually weaken the heart muscle to the point of people looking like they need a heart transplant. So broken heart syndrome is absolutely recognized in the cardiology literature. I saw a gentleman in my office yesterday who came in for atrial fibrillation. And in integrative medicine, we do something called a timeline. And on the timeline, we always want to know what was going on in someone's life when changes in their health occur, because this is fundamentally important. And I'll just say as an aside, many, many years ago, over 50 years ago, some beautiful research was done by Dr. Holmes and Dr. Ray, looking at life-changing events and the impact that has on individuals' health. And it's the most extraordinary research because they followed Navy SEALs and clinicians for 35 plus years. And what they found was major events in life will link to physical events in life. So for example, death of a spouse, divorce, and the list goes on. Everything from even getting married to having a new child, these major life-changing events, if your life-changing event score hits above 150, there's a big chance you're going to have some major illness, heart attack or stroke or cancer. So the gentleman I saw yesterday was telling me about his heart arrhythmia. It's just a perfect example. And I said, well, let's go back to when this started. And he then went to tell me his story, which was that his wife was diagnosed with cancer quite abruptly. And as he put it, he said she was not willing to fight. She did not want to go through all the chemo and treatments. And she said to him, take me home. I just want to be at home and live whatever I have left. And he took care of her. Beautiful story. 2 weeks after she died, he developed atrial fibrillation. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, I have a broken heart. I mean, he recognized this. So the heart is more than a physical pump, right? It's the seat of our emotions that we feel with our heart. We don't feel with our brain, right? And we use expressions like my heart is broken, or I love you with all of my heart, and so on. And it's truly vetted out in the literature. On a deeper, another level that people may not recognize is the concept also of loneliness. You know, the research shows that loneliness is equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. It's equivalent to diabetes in terms of health risk, equivalent to being obese. We talk about all these things, diabetes and obesity, but we forget that loneliness, being home alone, is as potent a risk factor for illness as anything else. You know, and I love Satchidananda's quote where he says the W-E in wellness is we, and the I in illness is isolation. So connection, community, having a purpose in life, these are the deep issues to me that lead to health. And I cannot tell your audience how many times I have had people with extensive cardiovascular disease where every MD would say, oh, that person, you know, they're not going to live more than a year, or they should have a bypass, or whatever. And they have a will to live because they have a purpose in life. And we overlook this in medicine. There's an innate will within one's soul to keep going beyond all obstacles. And most of the time that's related to something that we feel deeply passionate about, whether it's caring for a loved one like this gentleman did with his wife, or it's one gentleman said to me, I will never die before my wife. My wife has cancer. I will live to take care of my wife. And the day she died of her breast cancer, he died the next day.
Oh,
right? So there's a power here that we can't measure in a blood test. And I think that that in Western medicine, we forgot about these key pieces. And we say to people, take this drug, take that drug. Well, eat these Brussels sprouts. Well, if someone's depressed, or they're anxious, or they're having financial problems, or they can't sleep at night, you're not helping them by telling them to eat Brussels sprouts, right? Right. So it's sort of the forgotten, the touch that is the forgotten part of medicine. And I had the honor, a huge honor, of taking care of Louise Hay. And Louise Hay, I cannot think of a more evolved visionary. And I had pneumonia once, and Louise had an appointment. And she said, she came in, and of course she was in better shape than I was because I had pneumonia. And she said to me, what are you grieving? And I said, Louise, I'm not grieving anything. She said, yes, you are. What are you grieving? Why do you have this pneumonia? And sure enough, as she probed, I realized exactly what I was grieving. And so this concept of our issues sitting in our tissue, right? As a massage therapist, you know this. You can put your hands on someone and all of a sudden they break down in tears and they cry because we hold things in our body. And again, Western medicine is not looking at that release of these emotions, whether it's through breath work, whether it's through healing touch, whether it's through massage, just contact with another human being. It's fundamentally important.
Yeah, such profound insight. Amazing. So, okay, so we know how important it is. We know, and I know Dan Butner, Dan Buettner, who has studied the blue zones, can measure happiness. You know, these longest living and healthiest people are also the happiest people. So where does somebody start? So if somebody comes to you and they're struggling, and you know that there's this emotional piece that needs attention, what do you tell them to do first?
Well, very frequently when people are struggling, it's hard to tell them, go learn meditation, right? I'll give you, for instance, a woman came to see me yesterday. She had a major traumatic event in her life. She said to me, I am just devastated. And she said, I could not get out of bed for 3 days. And so I said to her, what would help you? She said, I don't know. And we talked for a while. Now she was really coming in for her blood pressure appointment. Well,
Right.
I put the blood pressure on the side right now, and we talked. And then I did a healing touch treatment on her. And healing touch is like acupuncture without needles. And I learned that through the American Holistic Nurses Association, how to do healing touch. And she just started to cry. And afterwards, she said to me, I've been unable to cry over this event. I've been unable to get to my emotions. And so in that instance, she broke through. And afterwards, I did give her something, what's called an inositol B12 injection to sort of, which really helps with anxiety. And I said, I want you to call me tomorrow. I want to know how you're doing so we can make a further plan. And she said to me, I don't need to call. I'm feeling fine. And it was that release, that emotion, that being able to be touched. Some other people need different things. Everyone is different. But when someone is in crisis, I like to use healing techniques. And I also like to teach people how to breathe, because you always have the breath with you, right? 4 seconds in, 7 seconds out. That puts the body in a state of relaxation. So you have to take simple steps when people are in crisis. And that may mean talking to a psychologist. It may mean coming in and having massage therapy, and we even use acupuncture, which can profoundly relax the body. So it just depends on the individual. And also for me, it depends on where they are spiritually. The lady I saw yesterday is very spiritual. And, you know, we talked about how her spirituality is there for her in times of crisis. And we talked about how she can pull from that strength and let go of the things she can't control. So, you know, I see a clinician's office. It doesn't matter what kind of clinician. You know, no one calls a massage therapist unless they're in pain or they're suffering in some way or their muscle hurts. That's what they think. Or no one calls an MD unless they have something going on. And we have to remember, we are in sacred space, right? And in that sacred space, people are coming for hope, and they're coming for alleviation of suffering. And that's our job, right? You know, William Osler said, to alleviate suffering, this is our work. And now, whatever it takes to do that, I believe that's why we're here.
So, do you think that, I mean, obviously you can't say one thing is more important than another, but I wonder about moving your body and exercise and sunlight, and obviously getting outside and getting fit is important. What would you have to say about that? I mean, if somebody had to choose between, you know, breath work and maybe a bike ride, you know, I mean, is it different for everybody? Is there something more advantageous of one thing than another?
Yeah. So I like to look at it this way. It's like a wagon wheel, right? And health and wholeness is in the middle. And there's many paths, many ways to get to that health and wholeness. And I do encourage my patients to look at their life and say, what did I do for body, mind, and spirit today? You know, body, did I eat well? Did I get out and exercise? Did I move? Did I garden? Did I spend time in nature? Did I sleep well last night, right? All these elements that go into a healthy physical body. And then in a healthy emotional body, right? Where am I at? Am I sweating over small things, or am I practicing my mantra, my prayer, my breath work? And then what matters to me in life, right? Am I, for my retired patients, I always look at, what are you doing that brings you joy? What kind of hobbies, for everyone, what kind of hobbies do you have? Are you doing volunteer work? What are you passionate about? What's something you never were able to get to when you were in your busy raising your family life? So I like to look at all of the various paths, and it's individual. Some people will say, I love to just be out and walking in nature and exercising. Great, let's do it. Someone else might say, I love spending time in my garden. Great, let's do it. But I always encourage people, try different things. I know for me, when I was looking for a path to inner peace and feeling that inner peace, I found meditation. But it wasn't just any meditation. I found transcendental meditation. That just worked for me. Of course, being in nature also works for me. Swimming and being in the ocean works for me. But once you find what works for you, I encourage you to go deep, right? I tried everything. I did Tai Chi, I did Qigong, I did yoga, and I still do Kundalini yoga. So you have to find, hey, this works for me, and then let me go deep with it. Dancing, I love dancing, and I encourage my patients, go and take a dance class. And couples that haven't danced together for years, they say, oh, we used to love to dance. They say, great, let's go and dance, because when you dance, you create new networks in your brain. When you learn a new language, you can create new networks in your brain. So we have all of these different paths to joy, and to health. So it doesn't have to just be, oh, I'm going to meditate or I'm going to do yoga. We should look at what works for us.
Okay, that's really great advice. And the problem, I think, for most people is they don't know how to get all those things in. And I think what you're saying is some of that can be, you can be doing more than one thing at a time, right? So being out in nature can be meditative, and you can be doing breath work, and some of these things can happen together. So it doesn't have to take up your whole 8-hour day to practice self-care, isn't that right?
It's not an 8-hour job, and we owe it. I encourage my patients to say, my body is my temple. Yeah. And how am I going to treat my temple today? Am I going to feed my temple Cinnabons, or am I going to eat healthy foods and get out in the sun and take a good walk and connect with people? This is what is, I believe, fundamentally important.
Do you believe that heart health is really fundamentally rooted in emotional health and happiness?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always say, first we have to face the fact that we do have some challenges as a world. And our challenges are the climate and the lack of clean air and the water and depleted soil. I mean, we have some real fundamental challenges with air quality and our food system and the quality of the foods we eat and so on. So there are some real challenges there. And that's a whole other hour, I'm sure, if we were to get into that. But I'll just say, most people don't recognize that the World Health Organization recognizes air pollution as the #1 independent risk factor for stroke and cardiovascular disease, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody thinks, oh, it's my cholesterol. So we need to have a clean planet to be healthy. There's no doubt about it. And what I see in my practice, and I happen to be in an affluent area of La Jolla, California, people are stressed, and that stress is resulting in food addictions, overeating, overdrinking, right? So what do people do when they're under stress? They have two choices, really. They can say, oh, I'm going to grab my dog and I'm going to go out and take a nice hike. Or they can say, I'm going to go home and I'm going to drink this bottle of wine. Or I'm going to smoke these I have 20 friends in this pack of cigarettes, or I'm going to have some comfort food. That's why we call it comfort food, right? People eat less healthfully when they're under stress. So in many ways, I think that is a key piece to what's driving unhealthy behaviors. And those unhealthy behaviors can be watching the news 24 hours, 7 days a week, right? With that news blasting in the background, and sitting and eating improperly. And, you know, all of these things fit together. So I encourage my patients to create a sacred space within their home. Turn the TV off, put on some music that you enjoy, bring fresh flowers into the home. If you can tolerate and like maybe lavender aromatherapy, you know, a true essential oil, if you're not sensitive to it, of course, that you make your home a place of peace. That's one thing I encourage everyone to do as much as possible. And to look at your life and say, what is truly important to me? When I wrote my last book, 108 Pearls, and I'm going to give a group of pearls, a special group of pearls for your viewers. I wrote a lot about practical things, right? About the body and cholesterol and all of that. But I also wrote a lot about planet health and a lot about how to transform the way we respond to the world around us. And really my goal is to get people to ask some deep questions. What really matters most to me? If I was diagnosed with a terrible illness tomorrow, how would I spend my time? What really matters? And I think we've gotten away from some of these basics. And my hope is that people almost just say, I'm going to simplify my life, right? I don't need to have a 30,000 square foot house and 5 cars in the garage, which I never drive, and all these things that I have to work to pay for that I never get to use, right? Really look at one's life and do the things that bring joy and create purpose. So I do think that joy, purpose, happiness, connection, community, those are the key ingredients.
Yeah. Wow. I do agree. I think you're right on. So this is just taking a step back, actually. Can you mentioned cholesterol a minute ago? Mm-hmm. And you know, I think everything that you're saying is so critical and so right on. And I wonder about cholesterol. So, you know, we have Dr. Esselstyn and that whole group of wonderful people who I love, who are really about getting your cholesterol down. And then there are there's the other school of thought that cholesterol really is essential and not that big a deal, something we shouldn't worry about. What are your thoughts on that?
So this is the analogy I use in my 108 Pearls book. It's the analogy of a tree. And if you have a tree and your tree has some sick fruit on it, right? Let's say that sick fruit is called high cholesterol. We have 2 choices. We can go up and we can cut off all the branches of our tree, you know, and we all know that that's not going to work. Or we can give a drug, an ill to the pill approach. Or you have high cholesterol, take this pill. High blood pressure, take that pill. Diabetes, take that pill. Or we can look at the soil and we can say, what is going on in the soil of this tree that's interacting with the genes? I like to think of the trunk of the tree like the DNA that's making us healthy or making us sick. So the whole cardiovascular question is the same as for the brain, right? And it's just, the body's a system. It's not a single organ, right? So if I had 30 holes in my roof and it was raining and you came in and said, let's patch up that one hole, we'd still be sitting there in the rain, right? So what we've done is we figured out we have one hole called cholesterol, and it's really easy to lower it with drugs and injections. So we're going to focus on that whole.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are various types of cholesterol. And again, I write about this in the book. You can have small, this is how I teach it to my patients. I say the LDL, the L in LDL, historically we say is the lousy cholesterol. Mm-hmm. The H in HDL is the happy cholesterol, right? Mm-hmm. But then you take those and you can really break them down, and you can break them down into HDL particle number. How many of these LDL cholesterols do I have? What type do I have? Do I have a lot of the very small particles that are more likely to get into the blood vessel, and so on? So we really need to look at this not with a simple cholesterol profile, but with something more in depth. Now, having said that, inflammation. Inflammation is the key to cardiovascular disease. It makes the cholesterol more damaged. Damages the lining of the blood vessel. So what causes inflammation? Well, sugar, simple carbohydrates, food sensitivities, heavy metals, previous infections, leaky gut, and so on. So if we were to say, what should we really be doing? We should be getting everyone on a very low sugar, get rid of all the white stuff diet, get people down to their ideal body weights through walking, if you can do that, and eating lots of green vegetables, which are filled with fiber and good minerals like calcium and magnesium, lots of green vegetables, as much plant-based as you can get, right? And good fats. I'm a believer in small amounts of good fats, small amount of avocado, right? Small amount of nuts and so on. So it's one thing to say, don't touch anything with fat or oil, right? Because we have a polluted planet and you can't do anything about that. So you might as well not eat anything with fat or oil. Mm-hmm. And when we did the research with Ornish, we did a low-fat vegetarian diet, and we showed we could reverse cardiovascular disease. But we also just didn't do diet. We did exercise and yoga and meditation and group support to establish community. So it wasn't as simple as just the food choices. And we know as cardiologists what kind of lab values people should have and what it takes to get them there. And at the end of the day, if I had to tell your viewers, cholesterol is a piece of the puzzle. Inflammation is the biggest piece of the puzzle, which can be measured. And the more they can do to get 7 to 9 servings of green vegetables into their body a day, the better they are, and the more sugar they can get rid of. Seriously, that's the plague right now, not only of the US, but of all of the world. It's all, when you look at the global burden of disease, it's all about obesity, diabetes, hypertension. Now we have fatty liver disease, all of it from sugar and carbs and lack of exercise, and persistent organic pollutants, herbicides and pesticides, which have been linked to insulin resistance and diabetes. So it's a complex issue, and we have to do everything we can through lifestyle.
Right. Dr. Guarneri, this has been such an incredibly informative and heartfelt, interesting interview today. I can't thank you enough for all of your wisdom. We are at the end of our time together, and I know you have something special for our viewers, and I'd like it if you could tell us a little bit about that.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to put together a series of pearls. Remember, my center in La Jolla is Pacific Pearl La Jolla, but I'd like to take a series of pearls from my book, 108 Pearls, for your viewers that target body, mind, and spirit, and make that as a gift where they can just take a look and say, okay, these sound like things I can do today or tomorrow, and it'll be related to pearls for sleep, pearls for some mind-body techniques, and so on, that I think the viewers might find helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. And if people wanted to find you, where can they find you? Where's your website? Where are you?
Well, you can just put my name in the computer, Mimi Guarneri, MD, and I will pop up, so I've been told. And the website at our Pacific Pearl Center is pacificpearllajolla.com. And unlike the Canadians, we spell center C-E-N-T-E-R, but
Yeah, we get that mixed around. Yeah.
But
Okay.
Pacific Pearl La Jolla.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll make sure that's in there. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for your time today. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.